Yeah, you can go ahead.
The consent agenda. Anybody would like anything removed from the consent agenda? May I have a motion then to approve the consent agenda?
I'll second it.
Colleen? Thank you, John. All in favor?
Aye.
6-4-0 against. Good of the cause. In lieu of the fact that we have no guests. Move right on to the treasurer's report. Leonard?
Okay, this is treasurer's report for the first month of the new fiscal year, the new school year, the 18-19 year. Total balance or cash from previous month was $4,617,229.53. Receipts during the month were $245,274.98. Disbursements were $952,294.34. Debit memos and credit charges were $6,936.83 for total ending cash balance per books of $3,917,147. Over on the right-hand side is our balances per bank, and you can see that the total per bank statements less the outstanding checks equals $3,917,147, and that balances to our books. Any questions?
Leonard, is the ad law reserve about that stays pretty consistent?
Yeah, we haven't done anything. The only thing that happens is it earns interest.
Right.
Those savings accounts, all those reserve accounts earn interest.
But that's a fairly decent amount.
Yeah.
Well, we did take out some of
We haven't.
from there.
That was last year. Yeah, we haven't.
On here it's 1,127,000 from the preceding month, and then 1,058,952 for the end of the month, right?
Now that's what's in the bank. You see what's in the bank there, okay? So this is we get the bank statements per quarter. That difference there is interest that's on our books that we haven't seen the bank statements for that yet. So that'll catch up to itself when we.
Okay. And we are going to, I guess my thought was, we are going to access the funds from that reserve for some of the current retirees who are going to receive benefits from their accumulated sick days, correct?
Right.
Yeah, right. That's what I was thinking. Okay.
Right. So that you'll see that catch up to itself in that the bank statements are per quarter. Like I said, there's 2 months of interest in there that hasn't been reflected. We don't have the bank statement for the reserve accounts there on a quarterly basis.
Colleen,
No, I
You
saw
got it.
that further. I just want to look back on this.
All right. Any questions? We'll move right along to the budget status report.
Okay. Budget status report, you'll see not a whole lot of activity in revenue. I will go down the revenue columns though first. Charges for service, $15,360. That's most of that is for we've had some tuition payments that came in. Use of money, $281. That's basically interest income. Miscellaneous revenues, $19,502. State aid and federal aid, there's really virtually nothing there. $4,676 for a total of $39,819. That's what our first month is. If you look back last year at this time, we're pretty much about the same, just a little bit higher last year at this time. On the expenditure side, salaries, $261,409. Employee benefits, $19,914. Our contractual and BOCES expenses were $184,873. Materials and supplies, $6,889. Equipment, $397. And nothing in textbooks for the month of July, or those transfers to the capital or special aid funds, those will happen at the end of the year, so there's zero now. Total expenditures, $473,482. Looking at last year, just about 0.5% lower this year in the expense side for the month of January or July compared to what we were last year at this time. Any questions on the budget status report?
What's the miscellaneous income?
Miscellaneous income, that is, the majority of that is for lacrosse. Those are
Oh, use of the.
use of our
Okay,
fields,
that's
yeah.
what I wondered. Ironman and all?
Lacrosse and Ironman
Okay, yeah, great.
revenues, yeah.
Great. Thank you, Leonard. Any questions on the budget status report? Okay. Audit committee report. On July 23rd, Dan, Karen Meister, and myself met with Tom Telling and Telling and Associates from Middlebury, Vermont, our auditors. It was just a routine meeting that we get together and discuss the upcoming audit. That's when they start their audit. Do you remember his colleagues? Or she's actually a partner now.
Yeah, Samantha Hillman, yeah.
So Samantha and Tom went through the process of the audit, reports that will be resulting, and then delivery to the Board of Education. We did ask if there is a potential for more frequent audits than an annual, so it's sort of a midterm audit if the need would arise, and they indeed do provide those. It's rare, but they do provide those. So, Dan, do you have anything to add?
No, covering that.
And that comes out August? We are in August, September.
Yeah, September sometime. It has to be done before October 15th. The report has to be filed with the state by then. Last couple of years, we were getting it the last week of September, first week of October, somewhere in there.
And have they
Yeah,
departed now?
They're done with the field work here. I talked to Tom last Friday. They're at another school district. They were at a school district last week. They're at another one this week. They'll be in the office all next week working on the reports. So we do have a few things hanging. We haven't got our TRS, our Teachers Retirement System invoice, where we have to make those adjustments to the expenses for the 17-18 year yet, and we haven't got to ERS, the employee retirement for the support staff. We haven't got that bill yet. So those two adjustments there are the last two things hanging before we can finalize the audit report.
Good. Thank you. Roger, it's superintendent report.
All right, I was going to talk about three things today. I'm going to give you an update on the high school principal search, talk about goals that I'll be articulating to our faculty and staff for the upcoming school year, and then provide you with a quick overview of what's happening as we get close to the start of the school year. So first, the high school principal search update. You would recall that 6.5 weeks ago we began a search to replace our high school principal, Dana Wood, who will be becoming the new business manager at the end of September. We received 9 applications, and then 2 weeks ago a team of almost 20 stakeholders, faculty, support staff, administrators, board members, parents, and students were involved in interviewing 4 candidates. In the discussions that followed the interviews, as it turned out, we discovered that we really did not have a consensus over the candidates, and I think possibly over how we were defining what our ideal candidate should be. So as a group, we decided it would be best to take a deep breath, rethink the search, appoint an interim, revisit the job description and the candidate search process, and then restart the search in the near future. Colleen and Jeff and Rick were involved in the interviews. Thanks very much for your involvement. That one day was quite a busy day, quite a full day. So my plan right now is to recommend an interim for appointment at the next board meeting, and then develop plans for extending the search. Any questions or comments about that? Okay. In terms of goals, every year I have the pleasure to be able to sit back and think about, where do I want to see us head? What goals do I have for our school district? And to be able to share those and to work on those goals with people who really carry things out, our teachers, our staff, our administrators. So I'm going to just share with you 4 goals that I'm articulating to the faculty. The first one has to do with relationships. And by the way, these don't all come from me necessarily. Many of these come from ongoing conversations and discussions that we have in the school district. In particular, this one really comes from the Professional Development Committee and all of its work last year. Our Professional Development Committee is a teacher-led committee. And as we work on the current year, we also look ahead to the future, and this particular goal really is something that our Professional Development Committee wants to emphasize for this year. So this is relationships, and what we mean by this is to strengthen, a goal of strengthening the positive relationships within our school community, and that means connecting students, faculty, staff, families, and community members, and then to highlight and emphasize the qualities of kindness, compassion, and mutual respect, and to strive to make those our highest priorities. So relationships. Second is what I'll refer to as a democratic environment. And what I mean by this is to promote school environments that really attempt to mirror a community that is ethical, inclusive, and democratic. In other words, try and make the school what we hope the community and the world to be. So to have what goes on within the school reflect those ideals. What does that mean? That means promoting multiple avenues for students and others for active participation, to promote responsible dialogue, to encourage civic engagement, to teach and advocate for intelligent judgment decisions, how to make intelligent decisions based on evidence and information and opinion and perspectives, and then to promote efforts toward social justice. In other words, we want ideally our graduates to go out and make a better world, and in school we want to be able to emphasize those kinds of qualities. So democratic environment. Third one, teaching and learning. Obviously this is the heart and soul of what we do all day, every day. And then to emphasize in there to engage not just some of our students in classes, but to engage every student, right? So to make sure that we are structuring our lessons and our learning experiences so that every student is engaged in meaningful and relevant learning experiences in every subject area. And then to be sure that we are challenging all of our students, right? And that's really our goal. Not some of our students, but all of our students, to reach the levels that we're always talking about and promoting, higher levels of thinking, critical thinking, problem solving, making wise and intelligent judgments about things. So to try and engage all of our kids in those kinds of learning activities. And then the fourth one, and we've talked about this, I think we talk about this every year, and maybe every year we have we put a different lens on it. This is the opportunity gap goal. All right, so this would be to continue to identify and understand the barriers that are faced by our children from families that we would often consider underprivileged, and to do everything we can to lower the barriers for those students, to recognize that even on a level playing field, sometimes some students are facing barriers that others aren't facing. To figure that out, to understand that, and to do everything we can to lower those barriers, and in that way, open the doors of opportunity wider for all of our kids, which is ultimately really what we want to do. We want our kids to see school as a way to move into the world with all the opportunities that they can have moving forward. So relationships, a democratic environment, teaching and learning, and to continue to identify and understand those barriers and address the opportunity gap. So those are some goals for the coming year. Finally, looking ahead to this upcoming school year, here's what's going on. So we're actually already started. For anybody who's engaged in sports, the season started yesterday, so first practices were on Monday, the 13th. For JV and varsity players, modified athletes will start Monday the 20th. Upcoming dates, additional dates, Wednesday the 29th of August is locker day at the middle school and high school. And if you haven't been to a locker day, it's really a good day. It's when students come. They're usually very eager for this day to come. They come to, they get their locker combinations and their schedules, and they're able to go into school and really walk through their day, know where they're going to be every period and where their locker is, and to figure all those pieces out. We usually have people around, teachers and staff around, where students can start to get ready for the school year, get mentally ready, and understand the lay of the land for themselves coming up. I think certainly middle school students are eager for this day, but it's really true for all ages. Then Superintendent's Conference Days. This is the Tuesday and Wednesday after Labor Day. So these are the first 2 days for staff before students come to school. And we'll start with an opening event here at the middle and high school, in the cafeteria, and then in the auditorium. And we will have a guest speaker this year. The guest speaker's name is Tom Bold. Some of us have heard him speak before. He's we'll call him a motivational speaker. He's also a practitioner, which means that he works in schools on a daily basis. So we're very excited for that. And we know that he's going to be addressing that relationship goal. Also on September 4th, we have kindergarten open house at Lake Placid Elementary School. Then we have a whole bunch of other things going on at Lake Placid Elementary School, right? We have kindergarten open house at noon, and then we have orientation for new students, chance for them to go walk through the building and see where they're going to be come Thursday. We also have open house for grades 1 through 5. I believe that's at 5 o'clock, and then at 6 o'clock there's the welcome back picnic for everybody and anybody associated with the elementary school, K through 5. A fun evening. And then Thursday, September 6th is the first day of school for students. So we start school on the 6th. And that's when we really, kick everything into high gear. So that should be an exciting day. We do have an open house for the middle and high school after the start of school, and that's Monday the 10th. So that's where we are. That's what's coming up. And that's everything I have to say. Any questions or comments? Liam?
Yes, I have a question.
Yes.
I was just wondering if there's any specific areas with the opportunity gap that you see addressing. That's the one that is the most concerning, I guess, for me, in that I just see a continuing, divide between the haves and the have-nots,
Yeah.
especially in Lake Placid. And in my professional life, I'm seeing it, and it seems to be, maybe it's just because I'm more involved now, I don't know, but it just seems to be increasing. So I just want to know specifics.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. And you might, if you read the Daily Enterprise today, there was an article on food services in schools. It didn't really highlight that much about us, but one thing you would have read in there is what I consider a very disconcerting statistic, which is that over the last 10 years, free reduced lunch numbers in Lake Placid have tripled, percentages have tripled, right? So we've gone from 14% to last year 41, 43%, depending on the time of year. So we know that this gap is there. We worry that this gap is widening. So last year, so we spent a number of years working on this in a number of different ways. One of them is really just to sort of understand it. You know, not everybody understands it. It's not always a clear thing. We have people who come to Lake Placid for a range of events. You know what they are. But we also have, say, conferences for educators here. And typically, and we attend these conferences. Typically we go to these conferences and somebody says, oh, we're so fortunate to be here in beautiful Lake Placid. Isn't everybody so fortunate to be here in beautiful Lake Placid? And then they sometimes they invite me to speak or some of our other administrators to speak. And what we have started saying is, we think it's beautiful here too, but we want you to know that there's many different sides of Lake Placid. And we often talk about that. We know that Main Street is is a center for tourism, but we teach kids who come to our schools who come from the side streets. And we talk about often we're at, say, the Crown Plaza on the hill on a beautiful day, and you can see forever, it's the most spectacular view around. We talk about the fact that we get great support from the owners of the hotel, but we also have many families who are employed by the hotel who are cleaning the rooms and washing the dishes. And these are the families of our students. So we've been trying to articulate this for a while, and I think we're making headway. Last year, we pursued an effort to really come up with practical, on-the-ground ideas for things that we can do in the elementary, the middle, and high school. We called this our Poverty Trauma Initiative, and we ended up with a long list of ideas, some of which were already are already well underway. Some of them very simple, some of them a little more complicated, some of them involving resources, some of them just involving paying attention. And at a recent conference, one of these conferences that I was telling you about, both our elementary school and our middle and high school presented that plan to other school districts in the area. So we do have a plan. You might find it in some old notes, and we'll have some more for you probably later on in the school year, ideas underway. I'll just give you one very, very, very practical one. This coming March, we're planning to institute an SAT test day. And typically the SATs are always given on a Saturday. And it's always been up to students and families to sign up and get there and pay for it and all that. There have been some support for students who are on free reduced lunch lists and all that. But typically you see a divide between kids who take the SATs and kids who don't. This coming year we're going to have a day, and this is something that the College Board has instituted that we're going to jump on board with during the week. We're going to do it during the school week. So there's going to be a test day during the school week. And the school district, we did put in the budget last year some funds for this. And the school district is going to cover the costs so that every student will have an opportunity to take that test, as one of the tools involved in college as the future. Certainly that's not our only piece, but that's one piece. So it's those kinds of things that we're trying to sort of recognize and tackle as they go.
Thank you.
Sure.
I'll have more follow-up.
I'm sure you will.
I think
That'll be
also
good.
too, maybe indirectly, even Laura Gaeta Coffin, the little libraries that she has
Absolutely.
all around the community, just allows all children from different backgrounds to have access to reading over the summertime, which is just an integral part of their learning. So that too is a way that we are reaching out to try to hit all different levels.
Yeah.
I guess I have one more thing I wanted to say. That I just, again, I just see this school as being a lot of students' only source of stability. Whether that's food stability, whether that's safety, whether that's a place to shower. We're talking about the basics, and I just a lot of that little stuff is really important.
Yeah, I'm completely in agreement.
Okay.
Yeah, and I think sounds like you would like to be involved in some
Sure.
more of these conversations as we go. Yeah, I'll just let you know that I think some of the conversations that we're having and some of the steps we're taking are pretty exciting. So I think you'll be happy to get involved in it too.
It's offering those services without picking out those kids.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely.
But just, I shared with Roger, my volunteer activity takes me into some homes around Lake Placid. Frankly, I'm appalled right in the mecca of Lake Placid are people living in conditions, deplorable conditions. So I think the school's a great place to start. Thank you. Any other questions for Roger? On to information for the board, we have 3 items. The claims audit. Any questions on the claims audit? Pretty straightforward. Boys and girls lacrosse merger. I'm going to ask Roger to just highlight that merger. It is a little bit different than what we've discussed and participated in the past.
Yes, it is. So this is an idea that we've been talking about, and so this piece of information is in advance of actually taking this step. So the board's going to be handed this as an action item in the future, and so you'll want to be prepared for what is involved in all this. So up to this point, our boys and girls lacrosse players have been welcome to participate in the Saranac Lake lacrosse program. And that's been a nice opportunity for kids who, for whom lacrosse is an important, activity to continue into interscholastic sports. A lot of there's a youth lacrosse program in the area that builds that interest and builds those skills, and so that by the time they're ready to play, this has given our kids that chance. So that's been a nice chance. The problem has been that because it's a Saranac Lake team, only kids whose parents can drive them are able to get them there. So it's been really a limited group of students who've been able to participate in lacrosse. There are other issues involving shared teams when we're not able to organize them. So for example, Saranac Lake doesn't have great facilities for lacrosse. They don't have the fields for them. So their practices are at all hours, and that makes it difficult, just as it would for anybody. It's very unpredictable for families. It certainly has made it almost impossible for us to even consider, adding a bus run that helped these kids out, because we never knew when they were going to be practicing. So we've been sitting down and talking. We've had a couple of face-to-face meetings and some other communication with Saranac Lake, and the last time was a couple weeks ago. And so we've decided to make this proposal to go forward. And so what this would be is this would be a true shared team. This would be using the SLP model that we used for the girls hockey program, and to have a team that represents both school districts. SLP being neither Saranac Lake alone nor Lake Placid alone, both. Organizationally speaking, our athletic director, John Burdick, would sort of oversee the daily management of the team, of one of the teams, the boys team, this year. And the athletic director from Saranac Lake, Eric Bennett, would oversee the other team, the girls team. And what that means is they would make sure they know what practice schedules are and transportation is. It would involve, it's going to involve additional busing now, because while we would use fields in Lake Placid, we would also use fields in Saranac Lake. And because we would now be an active partner, we would be contributing half of the cost of coaching and involvement in transportation. So this is something we're recommending. It's definitely an addition, but what we think it does, we think it makes sure that this is truly a, again, we're going to go back to the equal opportunity point. It would make it for this really, truly a sport that all of our kids will now have the opportunity to participate in.
So we're sharing the cost with Saranac Lake. So
Correct.
Theoretically then, our costs are cut in half, or not really?
No, so up to this point, Saranac Lake has been bearing all the cost. Lake Placid none,
I see.
right? So this would actually be an addition for us.
I'm not super excited about it. Why? It's free. How much is the cost going to be? You know?
I don't have all the numbers, and that's something that we'll be working on. But essentially, it's the cost of the coach, and it's the cost of additional transportation. And then there's always the cost of officials as well. Now, the other piece to this is that we've also talked about, not this year, but next year, building in a similar program with our boys hockey team. Our boys hockey team numbers have dwindled, and right now we're struggling to have enough boys to get on the ice on a regular basis. Last year we had to forfeit, I don't know, 1 or 2 games, is that right? Because of a couple of kids sick or injured. And while Saranac Lake is not ready to merge at this point, what we did discuss is merging next year. So what that would do is that would do the opposite of this. This would actually cut the costs in half in the long term. It would cut the costs in half. There's usually some startup costs, usually for unicorns, but it will cut the costs in half. So there would be a cost savings for the hockey to match or offset or somehow offset the cost of the lacrosse. But that would not be this year. This year would just be lacrosse.
Do you think, this is hypothetical, but the numbers you've seen, it seems like participation would rise with the opportunity of transportation.
Well, you'd think,
You
and,
would.
and I guess we're gonna see.
Have parents or students expressed an interest in lacrosse?
Yeah. So we're getting. So there is a strong advocacy coming from families whose kids already participate in lacrosse at the youth level. There is a youth lacrosse program, and what they're seeing, and they do a better job of tracking the numbers than we do.
Sure.
Frankly, what they're seeing is the numbers dwindling as the interscholastic program kicks into gear, and then kids are, need to do the traveling and all of that that's associated with it. So, yeah, we're getting, we definitely have the support and the encouragement from that community for doing this.
Yeah, and I'd say as a parent, my son participated in the club level lacrosse, and by the time he got into high school and was able to play, just the logistics of getting to Saranac Lake and the schedules that they have for the lacrosse, it just made it impossible for him to participate. This gives kids like that, and it's a pretty strong program here in Lake Placid. It's very well attended at the club level, so I think there is quite a bit of support for it in the community. That's why we're kind of looked into it in the first place. Okay. I think a lot of people voiced interest in doing it.
So is lacrosse played in this area in the spring of the year or in the fall?
So it's a spring sport.
Okay.
Now it has its own challenges, Colleen, because spring sports typically they start in March when the snow's still here,
Right.
and so practice facilities are often the biggest challenge, and lacrosse can get outside a little earlier than say baseball can, but it still is a challenge. So and that'll still be a challenge. What we'll be able to do is to use both school districts and the OTC for that, because we're gonna be broadening. The goal is to broaden the program. To be able
So
to
you
use both.
feel, though, that these students that are coming forth and asking to participate in lacrosse have a background in lacrosse, and it's not going to impede the baseball program where some of those students might have played baseball, so now, as we've done in many other sports, because we have so much to offer here in Lake Placid, and it's part of the problem with hockey. We have so many things for the students to do that it's spread out, and we don't feel that there were potential baseball players amongst those lacrosse players who now are going to pull from baseball, and we end up in a situation with baseball a year or two from now.
It's possible that with some kids that will happen. Right now, it's possible that there are some kids who are going to golf or tennis or baseball rather than continuing on lacrosse. You have some direct experience with this too, Dana. Just some of our players from this
I think
year.
it's more.
Yeah.
In that once that student, because at the youth level, lacrosse is played in the springtime, baseball is played in the summertime, so a child can do both. And then when they get to 7th grade, that's when the child ends up making the decision whether it's baseball. And I saw that because I coached modified lacrosse for a number of years, had Lake Placid kids on it, and it was a natural thing. Kids did both because they could do both, but once it came to a school sport, they couldn't do both, and kids just chose. And it didn't hurt one program or the other, because one year, one or two would go baseball and stop playing lacrosse. The next year, it would go the other way, because they just can't do both. So I don't think, because I think the program's been around long enough. We've had kids here at Lake Placid playing on the merged team for many years. I don't think offering it as a true merger is going to take away from other sports, because I think kids just choose that on their own.
The other element that's new is Lake Placid and Saranac Lake kids play together in the youth level
Right.
coming up, so they're used to one another. It's not the old Lake Placid versus.
It's also true in hockey now.
It is,
Yeah.
right, they play together, and so when they get to the academic sports setting, they actually divert and miss one another, so to speak.
Yeah, it's interesting watching like the modified and JV soccer. I mean, when they play Saranac Lake, they're calling each other by first names. It's not cover that guy's, cover Steve and cover Dylan, because they play together their whole, childhood. So, yeah.
So more to come on that. And there's an item under the executive portion regarding the interim vice principal, proposed interim principal, excuse me. Any discussion on any of those items that we all said? Okay, thank you. Moving right along to the goals and objectives. I believe we're in the final stages of this or completed with this. Thank you for those who provided input. I would choose not to go down and read through all these. I think go down and highlight some of the newer elements. Students first and foremost, which is the strategic goal number 1. There was just some verbiage changes there to continue to support rather than to provide support. So those are pretty similar to the 2017-18 goals. Strategic goal number 2, education. The first bullet, review all bus routes with the Director of Transportation and input from all bus drivers to assure effective, timely, and efficient routes. The second bullet is review and assess current community service requirements to assure equality and fairness for all students. Third is evaluate school lunch programs, take into account the governor's recent directives, and suggest goals as appropriate. So those are the 3 updated elements of strategic goal 2. Under strategic goal 3, which is community outreach and involvement, there's one change, well, 2 actually. With the inclusion of the entire board, create a quarterly newsletter consisting of Board of Education news, updates, and activities. The question came about on Google Docs, who was going to do that, and of course Karen will. No, I'll be doing it.
We vote for you.
I believe the comment was, is Karen doing this? If so, what will be taken off her plate? So that's something that I plan on spearheading. The second one is investigate and implement a process for delivering a summary of Board of Education highlights, investigate various methods, inclusion of perhaps a blog type of program. Everything else, the last one is reactivate the shared decision-making committee in accordance with the Board of Education guidelines and policy. Leadership, there really are no changes there. We highlighted attend 80% of the meetings because that was something that I guess I wanted discussion on, but as far as Google Docs, there was no discussion on. And we haven't seen an attendance problem or issue or hint of one so far, so, because we're really into this term so far, right? I think 2 meetings. So, technology, that remains the same. We've removed a couple of bullets. And then finance, those remain as well. Any comments, changes, suggestions? Now, these need to be approved,
Yeah.
so next meeting, we'll put them on the action items. Is everybody okay with that?
Mhm.
And then we can start working on those. So, questions, comments from anyone?
Yeah, I think just with regard to the community outreach, you know, if we're going to do this with a blog and with a newsletter, I think we really have to kind of put together some sort of a work group to figure out how we're going to do that.
Right.
You know, I think we can say it, but in order to actually make it happen, it's going to require some work, probably quite a bit actually, to get
That's
it started.
probably one of my words is investigate. So there's
Yeah, yeah. Well, let's start there.
right, exactly. Because if you're talking about starting a newsletter, a quarterly newsletter, and a
Yes.
blog, and that's a ton of work.
It
So I know I'm not retired yet, so not that that gives you any more time, but
Sure.
did your hand just go up?
I want sole authority.
He's the blogger.
Yeah.
And you're gonna hold his hand, Colin.
I'd be right here.
Yeah, I lit right up, I'm paying attention now, you know. Sure, absolutely.
All right,
So the front man and the handle, we've already got those two.
You're right there.
thank you. Okay, next item is the fund balance allocation. Leonard, do you want to lead us through this?
Oh, I took that off.
Yeah,
You
the
did.
last
that's off.
minute. Sorry.
All right. Okay, thank you very much. Thank you,
We hope-
Leonard.
We hope to have
Good
that
job.
for the next meeting, but depending on whether we get our
Is that TRS and ERS?
TRS and ERS
Okay.
expenses for, you know, in a timely manner, we might have to postpone it to the first meeting in September.
Okay. Board meeting minutes, that was on the consent agenda. Into the personnel matters. First item is a non-teaching retirement. Recommended action upon recommendation of the superintendent, accept the retirement of Nancy Thorick, teaching assistant at the middle and high school, effective July 30th, 2018. Do I have a motion?
Yes.
Jeff, a second?
Yes.
Thank you, Dan. Discussion.
Just want to say that, you know, Nancy's, provided, tremendous contribution here over the years. This is not her first career. She's come into schools as a later career. This was not her plan to retire at this point, but she feels the need to. She did have a terrible accident last year that has created some physical limitations, and she just wants, she has pretty high standards for herself, and she thought long and hard about this. And that's really why you're getting it in the summertime, because it wasn't initially her intention to do so, but now she knows it's the right thing. So I'm sorry that that's the way she's going, but I do want to celebrate all that she's contributed over the years.
Generally, yes.
Everyone voted?
6-4 and 0 against, thank you. Long-term teaching staff appointment was on the consent agenda. The next whiz personnel matter is upon recommendation of the superintendent, approve Kathy Bliss as teaching assistant at the middle high school for a probationary period beginning when certification is obtained and anticipated to end 4 years from that date. Salary will be $24,207, step 2, level 1 of the teacher assistant salary schedule for the 2018-19 school year. Do I have a motion?
Motion.
Thank you, Colleen. Second?
A second.
Thank you, Brian.
So she's going up to the middle high school?
Yeah, so we do see with most of our teaching assistants are connected with students, special education students. And so when the needs shift, the people shift. She's not the only one going up to the middle high school.
Right.
This was an easy recommendation. Kathy served wonderfully as a long-term sub last year in the elementary school. So this is her first permanent appointment. But that is where the need is, yeah.
She'll be wonderful. She's just got this rapport about her. She works well with students. I'm really excited to see this.
Yeah.
Any additional questions, comments? Okay, please vote. 6-4, 0 against, motion passes. Thank you. Non-teaching staff appointment upon recommendation, superintendent, approve Juliana Searing as teaching assistant in middle high school whose certification in childhood education grade 1 through 6 for a probationary period of 4 years beginning on September 1st, 2018 through August 31st, 2022. Salary will be $25,694, step 1, level 3 of the teaching assistant salary schedule for the 2018-2019 school year. Do I have a motion?
I'll make a motion.
Joan, second? Yes. Dan? Thank you, Dan. Discussion? Okay, if you can vote, please. And 6-4, 0 against, the motion passes. Next, non-teaching staff appointment. On recommendation of the superintendent, approve Charles Chansey, is that the way you pronounce it?
Chauncey.
As teaching assistant at the elementary school, who has a certification as a teaching assistant level 1 for a 4-year probationary period beginning September 1st, 2018 through August 31st, 2022. Salary will be $26,028, step 3, level 3 of the teacher assistant salary schedule for the 2018-2019 school year. Do I have a motion?
I'll make a motion.
Thank you, Brian. I have a second?
Yes.
Colleen, discussion? Comments? Please vote. Six, 4, 0 against. Thank you. Motion passes. The appointment of mentors and sponsors was on the consent. Long-term appointment of CSEA typist. Recommended action is upon recommendation of the superintendent, approve the appointment of Patricia Garrett as part-time typist at 2 hours per day for 182 days at the rate of $19.01 per hour. This is off step for the 2018-2019 school year. There are no benefits for this position. This appointment is to assist the athletic director. Do I have a motion?
Yeah.
Thank you, Dan. Second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Jeff. Discussion? If you would vote, please. Six, 4, 0 against, the motion passes. Next item, management confidential contract, that was on our consent agenda. Moving along to another non-teaching staff long-term appointment. Upon recommended action, upon recommendation of the superintendent, approve Cameron Shipman as long-term teaching assistant at the middle high school beginning September 1st, 2018 through January 27th, 2019. Salary will be $24,668. Step 1, level 1. Prorated of the teacher assistant salary schedule for the 2018 and 2019 school year. Do I have a motion? Sorry about that.
Yes.
Thank you, Colleen. And a second?
Yes.
Thank you, Dan. Any comments, questions? If you could please vote. 6-4, 0 against, the motion passes. Thank you. Setting of tax levy and signing of tax warrants. Recommended action to set the tax levy for the Lake Placid Central School District and to approve the signing of the tax warrants for the towns of Lake Placid and Wilmington, New York, in order for the district to begin collection of taxes on September 1st, 2018 through November 1st, 2018. Based on information provided to the Board of Education and placed on file with the district clerk. The resolution is attached hereto and made a part hereof. Do I need to read that?
No.
Okay. Thank you.
Want to read that?
Do I have a motion, please?
Yes.
Thank you, Jeff. And a second?
Yes.
Thank you, Colleen. Questions?
No, I just think it's exciting to acknowledge that the potential for an 11 cent per thousand decrease, even though it's minimal, it's still.
Still had an
You can
increase.
just say that to the taxpayers
Yeah.
After the
Yeah.
assessments change this spring locally, so I think it's great.
Thank you. Anyone else? If you would vote, please. And 6 to 6 yes, 0 no's.
And everybody has to sign the warrant before you
Right.
leave.
Should I just do it at the end of the year, pass it down?
You can put us down at the other end.
Okay. Start with you, pass it back up.
Donation acceptance. Recommended action, whereas the Lake Placid Central Schools Board of Education Policy 6255, donations, gifts, and grants to the district, allows for the superintendent of schools to accept on behalf of the board gifts, donation, and grants having a value of less than $1,500, whereas monies have been granted to the Lake Placid from the Lake Placid Education Foundation for the robotics program in the amount of $3,000. Now therefore be it resolved in accordance with policy 6255, the Board of Education hereby accepts the grant scholarships from the Lake Placid Educational Foundation for the robotics program in the amount of $3,000. I have a motion. Thank you, Joan. Second?
Yes.
Is that Dan or Jen?
Dan.
Thank you, Dan. Thanks, Dan. Any questions, comments?
That's great, though.
Yes.
The Education Foundation has been very generous with us in the past, but these are not guaranteed grants. These require a lot of work and a lot of effort. You know, the Ed Foundation board needs to really believe that this matters. And so I think this is a really terrific sign, and just really grateful that they were willing to support the program.
I can't wait to see the next robot.
Me too.
We actually had, I was here about the future planning. We actually will have an applied robotics class. I was just looking at the schedule earlier, so it's going to be an every other day, all year long class. Yeah, for applied robotics.
Now, yes, last year Northwood was involved somehow. What was their relationship?
You know, they really provided a lot of encouragement to us. They had an existing program. They
Right.
provided encouragement to us to join them, and we did.
They came over one day and set up in the foyer. Their club came to show off and kind of drum up support here. So kids were able to, during the lunch periods, just kind of come and interact and see what Northwood had built, just to kind of get our program going.
Excellent. So we have 6-4, 0 against, thank you. Second read was consent. Special education was consent. Moving right along.
Just to follow up on the special education, the programs for approval at the next meeting is fairly lengthy, and I'll be providing you a summary with my board notes. But if you have any questions, please let me know. If we need to raise any questions for our chairperson, Sarah Allen, please let me know in advance so I can invite her to come to our next meeting. I've already read and reviewed the programs. I don't see anything that I think will stand out for you, but sometimes that's not always the case. Sometimes something will stand out for you. So feel free to let me know if something comes up. It's a pretty thick packet.
They will be available on Board Docs.
Yes, they are available now.
They are available now.
Yes.
Any questions on the August 21st packet? Great, okay. Getting into the adjournment phase, next meeting and locations. Looking at August 21st, that's always in parentheses of if needed, but generally because of appointments, you foresee that as well?
I do.
Last minute appointments of teaching staff or staff in general, so we'll plan on that August 21st meeting. It'll be relatively short, it generally is, so beginning at 6:30 and then September 4th and September 18th. Any old agenda topics?
I guess I'm just, one more question about the interim principal. Will we know by the August 21st meeting who that's going to be?
So that's the plan, yes.
Stop by, say hello to us?
If we need to have any in-depth discussions about that, and I did provide you some information in the executive content, so you could have a chance to look at that. And I'd encourage you to do that. If we need to have an executive session in the next meeting, please again, provide feedback, to Rick, to me, or Karen, and we can do that. It may or may not be necessary, so that's really, but we provided you some information up front, so you can make that call.
If you can all look that over, and if you'd like an executive session, let one of us know so we can get it on the agenda. Thank you. Just carrying forward some old items, status of surveillance cameras. Are you able to give us a little update on?
I can, and probably Leonard can, and probably Danny can, maybe even better, but just very briefly, the elementary school is up and running and complete. The middle and high school is getting there. They've been working a lot faster since they doubled their staff.
Two?
Thank you. Thanks to for the encouragement from Leonard in particular there. Today they were on the roof installing some of the external cameras. So have either of you seen them online? How many cameras do we have that we can actually visualize right now?
Oh, last time I checked, we were about a third, but the worker yesterday said that all the internal cameras will be done by this week. So that's, I think, 30, well, there's 32 cameras in all up here. I think 8 or 9 of those are just outdoors. It was nice to see, because yesterday he was kind of hesitant to talk about the outdoors because he couldn't find a lift to work on it, so he didn't know if he was going to get to it, and sure enough, you see the lift out there. So he was able to find something that was yesterday. That wasn't the talk. He was looking more for the 27th of having a lift here, just because of the lack of availability. But that's when they started working on the corner here. If you happen to notice as you were pulling up, it's a brand new external camera right here on the corner, looking towards the loading dock. If only we had it a week or so.
Yeah.
But
Oh, is that where it was?
that would have been the camera that would have seen it. Yes.
So bizarre.
And building repairs, we still in a holding pattern with the state?
All the applications, everything was sent back to the architects, and we're just waiting. We're in the loop right now, so it's probably going to be a while.
Any other old business? Any new business? The only thing I had down was the seating situation. I don't know if you want to bring that up or not. I know it went out to everyone in an email, but.
I did put that out there. We did have a discussion about any other opportunities for feedback and input from
Right.
outside of this room. Do you want to talk about that at all?
Yeah, I mean, my question was,
Sure, yeah.
what feedback had we received from the community? And my concern is like anything in small towns is, we all agree that we're gonna go in a certain direction, and then you do it, and all of a sudden, all the people who didn't show up to the public forums to talk about it now are raising their hand to complain about it. So I wanted to make sure I'm kind of leaning toward, doing the new seats. It just makes sense. If we're gonna spend that much money, moving the old ones does not make a heck of a lot of economic sense. Moving the plaques to, kind of relatively where they were on the old seats, so that part of it, that history transfers with the upgrade is all a good thing. But I think my recommendation was, can we reach out one more time to the community through the media outlets, basically, the paper, the radio station, and probably that's enough. And our normal newsletter to say, hey, this is kind of your last chance to, comment on this, or, give us your opinion before we go ahead and do this. And I don't know where we're leaning, as a group. Is it going to be replacing or going to be just reconfiguring?
When do you hope to replace or reconfigure these?
Well, it won't happen until next year,
Okay.
but we have to make the decision now so that we can get all the plans underway.
So do you think that,
Is everybody up to date with what the plans were? So we were looking at two different styles of new seats or refurbing the old. And a lot of it, for me, a lot of it was cost. And because of the requirements for ADA requirements, correct?
That's right.
Such as aisle lighting and things like that. Rehabbing the old seats really is a costly item. So it'd be easier, about the same cost, to put in new seats. So aside from nostalgia,
do you think that it would be just a great idea or an extension of a hand, like Jeff suggests, is perhaps at the fall open house or something like that, saying if anybody wants to come strolling through the auditorium one more time to give a look, at least you're giving people the opportunity, because that nostalgic piece, if there are people who have their names on the backs of those chairs, at least it gives them, an additional opportunity to wander through, as you said,
Sure.
Jeff. And maybe that would be a great time to.
Is that too late?
I thought maybe we could auction off the old seats. Which would probably go over really well.
I can just see some of those local families who have their.
It's important because I do agree with you, and I think that there is a strong connection to that. It's important that we know that the seats are not the original seats, not the not the seats in the ground floor of the auditorium. I believe the ones on the balcony are, and those we're not planning on changing those at all. So it is the ones that are upholstered on the ground floor. We have, if I'm counting this correctly, we have 5 Lake Placid High School graduates in this on this school board right now, and I think that's right. Is that right? Yeah. And so when many of you some of you graduated, these were the seats that you were, that you spent many of your years in. When some of you graduated, they weren't. They were the previous generation of seats, and you probably know them better than I do. I believe some of them were green leather.
He's asking us to date ourselves.
I remember both of them, so.
You do?
Yeah.
Do you remember the green?
Yeah, and so
green leather.
then they reupholstered them?
That's right, in the mid-90s.
Yes.
Right, so they were they reupholstered or they new? I think they were new.
No, I think they're reupholstered. Maybe, I feel like they just changed I'm not sure.
So the new seats that we have in there are 2 different ones. We're all kind of on board with the ones that look identical to the current seats. They're made to match as closely as possible. So I'm going to take a look.
Absolutely.
Will those 2 seats still be here for the open
I don't
house?
see it. I don't see
Yeah,
anything.
the guy said
He said
that
he'll leave it for a long time.
they leave them here indefinitely.
I'm sort of
Let people
looking
stroll
forward
through.
to taking them to football season.
For the rainy days. Well, Colleen, with open house, we typically start in the auditorium. Teresa and myself, we usually have a brief 10 to 15 minutes talk with everyone about the night. So we could easily leave the chairs right down there, talk about it briefly in terms of taking a look, and if you have a suggestion one way or the other to let us know.
I think that's great.
Yeah, as long as we make it clear that, this is something we have to do.
Right.
And here are our options, so,
Yeah.
here, now's the time to say, voice your opinion.
And it's great. It links in with one of Roger's goals fostering relationships and
Yeah.
allowing people to have a voice. I think it's great.
It's
Yeah. They put a suggestion box.
Yeah.
Students prefer.
Only
Anyway.
option 1 or 2.
Yeah.
That's right. You have 15 options. Go back to the original green seats instead of the blue. Yeah.
All right, does anybody have anything else? Great. Do I have a motion to adjourn?
Yes.
Colleen, second? Thank you, Joan. All in favor? Aye. I believe that would be a 6-0. Great, thank you very much, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
It was Colleen, who was the second? Thank you.
Colleen's first.
We're going to do an agenda setting meeting tomorrow morning. Do it after, pretty soon.
Yes, because I have to send out the notice.
Is that